Could this be the best rifle I've ever received from Inter Ordnance's African Horde, or is it just another piece of Ethiopian junk? What's up guys, Readiness Reviews here with you again, and today we're diving in deep on the IO Inc. No.5 Mk.1 Jungle Carbine. Of course, IO Inc. or Inter Ordnance is the company responsible for importing the massive batch of firearms that have been coming in from Ethiopia, the surplus firearms being offered by Royal Tiger Imports. But this particular Jungle Carbine didn't come from RTI. I actually got this one from Classic Firearms for a pretty amazing sale price of $500, and that price sounds outstanding, but that means absolutely nothing if this is just another RTI garbage rod. So let's get this World War II veteran over to the workbench for a thorough inspection and cleaning, and then we'll finally find out how she shoots. Being imported from Ethiopia by Inter Ordnance, this thing is super dirty, so we need to do some cleanup before we get out and shoot it. As with any new milsurp, it's also important to get in there and inspect things to make sure it's actually safe to shoot. In the case of this Jungle Carbine, we covered a lot of that inspection in the unboxing video. I will post that video right up here if you want to check that out. I've handled this rifle a good bit since acquiring it, so a lot of the dirt and grime has sort of already rubbed off. But if we take a close look here in all the nooks and crannies, corners and crevices, there is a lot of dirt and dust. Also, the action here feels a little gritty when you pull the trigger, so I think our trigger mechanism especially needs some cleaning. The bolt itself on this rifle is actually in pretty darn good shape. The bolt head is a size 0. Inside the action here, things were surprisingly clean out of the box. Even our magazine here is pretty free of large amounts of dust and debris. But as we can start to see on my hands here, things are still dirty. We can really see a lot of that powdery, sandy dust around the trigger here. And that's really what we're looking to remove from inside the action to make sure things are nice and smooth while shooting. Let's get the barreled action out of the stock. I don't love these No.5 barrel bands. I think the hinged barrel band of the No.1 Enfield was a lot nicer. This stamped sheet metal is way cheaper to produce though. Top handguard comes off there. We've seen far dirtier rifles under the wood line coming from Inter Ordnance. This is of course a real legit Jungle Carbine. We can see our lightning cuts in the barrel here. Now let's get our trigger guard assembly out. And there's the dirt and grime all around the trigger itself. We even have a ton of little bugs, and all the way down where the metal met the wood at, there is all kinds of dust and dirt. We'll slide our forestock off. Bug carcasses and dirt is literally just falling out of here. It is caked in all the corners, but despite being extremely dirty, this forestock does appear to be in outstanding condition. There's a scratch or dent and ding here and there, but there are no cracks anywhere and everything seems super solid from a shootability standpoint. Our sear and trigger spring is completely coated in all of that dirt and dust, and I think we'll tackle that with my tried and true toothbrush and bore solvent. Since this is the dirtiest part of the firearm by a landslide, I'm going to really go on thick with the bore solvent, try to get everything soaking wet. If we were going to properly clean this firearm for long-term preservation, and not just a simple range trip like we're preparing for now, we would completely take down all of the trigger parts here, pop out every pin and screw, and be sure to take care of every bit of that gunk, because that dry dirt and dust can actually draw in moisture from around the gun and cause things to start rusting. I have some of this aerosol quick scrub by Shooter's Choice. This stuff is really good for a quick cleaning of semi-auto firearms. Since we have some tiny little parts in here that I'm really not getting down into with my toothbrush, I thought it would be a good idea to sort of blast some of those areas out with this. And as we can see, squirting under this bolt release, it does a good job of getting in those little nooks. I think I'm going to hit the whole rear sight with our bore cleaner too. After getting it wet, I will cycle it through its adjustments here to just try to get the cleaner all down in the parts I can't hit with a toothbrush. Everyone knows the cock on close action of these Enfields is renowned for being very smooth and fast, but if the rifle's super dirty, even this awesome Enfield action can be far from smooth. That was pretty easy and didn't take too long. Now that everything is wet with our solvent, I'm just going to go in with a shop cloth here and wipe all that away, and we're left with some really nice looking clean receiver metal. It's far from perfect, but that's looking ready to shoot to me. I've learned the hard way though that these firearms from Africa can sometimes have super dirty chambers, so dirty in fact that it can impede the loading of rounds. So it's basically become standard practice at this point to get in there with my drill and bore brush to really clean things out. This is a 20 gauge bore brush. We'll go in for a quick dip of solvent and then ease our brush into the chamber and give it a good spin. And that one simple trick is sometimes all it takes to smooth out the action of a rifle that's having some loading issues. For our wood here, I'm going to trade out to a fresh, dry toothbrush just to knock out all the creepy crawlies and dirt that has been deposited in all the corners. Again, I'm not trying to be a perfectionist here, just trying to make things a bit more serviceable. Look at this pile of dirt that came out of the stock. Since we've gone through the trouble of taking things down, I guess it won't hurt to at least clean the outside of the wood a little bit. I have some Murphy's oil soap here that's been dissolved in some warm water. I'll soak some of that up with just a simple wash rag. This Murphy's oil soap is meant for hardwood floors and wood furniture, and it does a really good job of gently cleaning wood without causing damage. I've been using it on my rifles for more than a decade. That's what came off the 4 stock, and I'll give the handguard a little wipe down here too. I'm glad to have all this grime on my rag instead of on the rifle. That was quick and painless enough. I'll give this wood about an hour or so to air dry, and this rifle will be ready to slap back together. I have previously cleaned the bore on this rifle, so I know that it's good to go. If you're just getting in a brand new rifle though, you always want to run a bore brush through the bore before shooting to make sure you clear any obstructions. Lastly here, we'll give the magazine a little drop of lube to make sure it feeds nice and smooth. And now I think it's time we get our No. 5 Jungle Carbine out to the range for some accuracy testing. We'll do a few shots offhand for our first shooting post-cleaning. Loading up 5 rounds of PPU 150 grain soft point boat tail. I'm not really taking my time for accuracy here, more just test firing. The Lee-Enfield action is always pretty quick, but I was experiencing a little bit of roughness after cleaning with the Jungle Carbine. I think that's most likely due to me not wiping the chamber out quite as good as I should have after drilling it, and I'll take a couple kneeling shots here for good measure. The bolt was feeling really sticky after this 4th round, but things do smooth out a little bit as the day progresses and we do more shooting. For whatever reason, we didn't have the best extraction there, but we are most certainly dealing with a functional firearm, and that's a good start. For more legitimate accuracy testing, I thought it would be important to have something to compare against, and I believe the best rifle I have in my inventory to compare against the Jungle Carbine is my Royal Tiger Imports C-Grade No. 4 Mk.1 Lee-Enfield, also chambered in the .303 British cartridge. So we're testing 2 rifles with 3 different kinds of ammunition. I started with the No. 4 to get our baseline. The first group was this 150 grain soft point boat tail 303 from PPU. This also happens to be about the cheapest Lee-Enfield ammo you can get your hands on, and it's primarily what I shoot out of my rifles. These rather quite small targets were shot at a distance of about 35 yards, and at 35 yards, my pretty poor eyesight can barely make this target out. There's our PPU group with a No. 4 Enfield and a 303 British cartridge for size comparison. By no means is this an awesome group, but to be completely upfront and honest, this is a pretty standard size group with me behind a worn military surplus rifle. Now our Ethiopian Jungle Carbine here really surprised me with this PPU ammunition. Man, this thing thumps. There's our 3-shot Jungle Carbine group, 2 in the red and a flyer, making this an extremely good group in my opinion. A huge improvement over that No. 4 group. Next up is some brand new Remington UMC 174 grain full metal jacket. With this load, I had some ugly vertical stringing, but all in all, that's pretty close to how we shot with the PPU. Once again, the No. 5 Jungle Carbine put in a tighter group than the No. 4 did with this ammo, but these 174 grain bullets do seem to be shooting a bit high out of that rifle. The last round we tested is a bit of an oddball. This Cellar and Bellet is a heavy 180 grain soft point loading, and these are some weird looking bullets. Check out that big, fat soft point bullet compared to our 150 grain PPU. And that was S&B 180 grain soft point flat bottom, I think. Out of our No. 4 rifle, we didn't achieve the best group. In fact, I think that's probably our worst group so far. For some reason, the neck of the brass got bent on the Cellar and Bellet 180 grain on one of the rounds. This S&B ammo also shot pretty poorly out of the No. 5 Jungle Carbine. This group is still tighter than it was with the No. 4, but it's low and has some pretty serious horizontal stringing, so I don't think our Jungle Carbine liked those big bullets very much. Despite the less than stellar showing from S&B, I was extremely impressed with this rifle accuracy-wise. It seems to handily outshoot my No. 4 rifle, which previously I considered the best shooting Enfield in my inventory. Regardless of bullet weight here, we had no issues with stabilization. On every single one of these targets, we have a nice, clean, round hole, which I can't say for a lot of the other .303 chambered rifles I've received imported from Inter Ordnance. After our little shooting excursion, I got the rifle back home and thoroughly cleaned the bore once more. And I must say, I am super impressed with how pretty the bore on this rifle is. It is clean and shiny and most certainly the best looking bore of any Enfield rifle in my inventory at this point. And I'm sure that's why this rifle's shooting performance was so solid. So it's safe to say I'm pretty impressed by how this little carbine shot. But we did encounter one odd issue while on range that I had to mention. That last one was a little weird. Smelled weird. Felt a little weird.
That looked like a rubber smell, didn't it?
It was a one-time occurrence, so I don't know if the rifle is to blame or the ammunition is to blame, but we did experience a busted primer with one of our rounds from PPU. Punctured primers like this are usually due to a headspace issue, and these Enfield pattern rifles coming out of Africa are known to have headspacing issues. So perhaps that was the problem, and this rifle may need its 0 marked bolt head changed out to a No. 1 bolt head to fix it. But since we only experienced that issue a singular time, and that particular round both felt weird and smelled weird when I shot it, I actually think the ammunition is to blame. I don't know what would cause factory new PPU ammo to give off sort of a burning rubber smell when fired and display signs of overpressure. If you guys have any theories, let me know about those down in the comments. Aside from that, I did encounter a problem here or there of the action being a little bit rough, but again, I think that was due to poor cleaning on my part, and we also had the odd failure to completely eject when I worked the bolt a little bit slow, but as long as I was authoritative, everything was just fine. That brings us back to the question, though, of whether or not it's worth taking a risk on these Inter Ordnance jungle carbines. From a value standpoint, it's hard to argue against it. In today's collector market, a shooter-grade condition No. 5 carbine is easily fetching $650, $750, even $850 for nicer ones. And I picked up this rifle shipped for about $550. It's worn, but it's honest wear on a World War II dated example. It's most certainly an adequate shooter, and for me, that's always the most important thing, but we have to remember that my example came from Classic Firearms and not from Royal Tiger Imports. Given other reviews I've seen on this batch of turn-in condition rifles from Classic Firearms, it seems like there might have been a little bit of a vetting process for the guns that Classic got from RTI. In bore condition specifically, it seems these jungle carbines are quite a bit better than most other .303 chambered rifles that have come from Ethiopia. It just sucks. It looks like Classic Firearms is now out of these rifles. However, Royal Tiger Import still has them, and in several different conditions. Their standard condition rifles, which should be very close to this one, are coming in between 5 and 6. They also have B grade and C grade examples at heavy discounts, but that also comes with the risk of being a far worse condition rifle and needing substantial work before it's turned into a decent shooter. And as always, with any Inter Ordnance rifle, bore condition is always up in the air. It is a roll of the dice every single time. And although their Jungle Carbines do seem to have better bores than most of the other .303 chambered infield options, it is still a risk, plain and simple. For me, in my example, I couldn't be happier. I love this gun. It recoils like getting kicked by a mule, but it is fun to shoot, darn accurate as I showed earlier, and although it's not going to win any beauty contest, I'm completely content with the condition that it is in. I want to know what you guys think though. Was this rifle worth 500 smackers? And would you take a gamble on an Inter Ordnance Jungle Carbine of your own? Thanks so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up to help it out with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of my future military surplus firearms content. And I will catch you guys in the next video. See you then. Peace.